and we're going to start jumping into the demo. So I'm primarily going to be using my just our website to do most of this, because I think it's helpful that you can actually go and do this yourself if you need to. All right, we look like we are good to go. So I'm just on our website. So this is just nutrient.io. So this is our homepage with Nutrient. You can see everything here. When we were going to those 4 pillars, you can see, you know, we have the SDK, we have the cloud services, we have workflow, and we have integration. So, you know, this is still the 4 pillars of what you might be interested in. You can see some of the customers we work with here. Obviously, again, you know, DocuSign, Box, things like that. You know, if you are navigating to our website, you know, we do have an AI assistant here that's been really helpful for customers. So we're going to jump into the SDK. And kind of jump through stuff. So how this kind of works and how I try to run these, if you've watched another one, is our SDK for our web SDK, which our web SDK is probably one of our most popular products. So people building web applications, you know, you're within that web application, you know, you go to view a document. Most of the time it will pop out to whatever the browser has. So with Chrome, you're looking at something with PDF underneath it, which is the rendering engine. Safari and things like that have different things. So like ultimately we're going to talk about web. So web apps, you're building a web app, and then ultimately you're clicking and opening a document, and what happens after that. Obviously, we have other integrations that you can look at too. So, you know, if you're working on mobile apps on iOS or Android, or if you're using any of these hybrid technologies like Flutter, React Native, that's possible too. And then the server side stuff where you're doing more headless processing. We have our own document engine, which is deployed via Docker container. So it's more agnostic to kind of the backend language, but then we also have a language specific deployments like .NET and Java. So back to the SDK for web. So the web SDK, it is feature flag. So what that means is when you're coming through and you're talking to Nutrient, you can essentially kind of pick and choose what you need, because we do a lot of functionality. You know, we've been around for, you know, over a decade. We spent a lot of time adding more functionality things based on what customers are needing. But ultimately, like, you know, everything's built on a component basis. So I'm going to crank through some of these components so you can see what each one does. So if you're having a conversation with our technical team or our sales team, you can be like, you know, I just need to view and annotate. Well, I need to sign. And so these equate to things. And so you can really pay for what you need rather than buying a package for stuff that you don't anticipate. We also can kind of grow with you as, you know, feature requests come in and things like that. So we're going to start with the PDF viewer. So, you know, if you're going onto our SDK page and you hit launch demo, that will launch us straight into the demo. So I've got our viewer pulled up right here. So we have a Nutrient Playground that basically gives you some example applications and examples that we've built. So what's nice is if you're going through any of these, you can always download these projects and you can actually use the custom examples in your environment. So you can either use it as the kind of end user, or you can actually jump in and understand the underlying code as well. So we've kind of combined these to make it a better experience based on what you're trying to do. I like to run everything in dark mode, but you can also pick what version you want to. So obviously we're releasing a nightly. So, you know, if you are somebody that's our existing customer and we find something, we're building something, you can come here and test it nightly and stuff like that. So here we go. Viewer. So viewer is the core component to our web SDK. So you're clicking on a PDF, and instead of it kicking out to Adobe or something else, it's going to render in your application. So some of the standard viewing stuff that you expect is, you know, you want to have thumbnail support. So being able to scroll through thumbnails and see what the side view is. You want to understand if there's an outline. So the PDF spec, we follow that pretty closely. So as you're moving documents through different PDF viewers, we try to adhere to it as much as possible so that document fidelity continues. So you can jump through different pages pretty quickly based on the outline that's there. We can set bookmarks up. So if you want to bookmark a certain page and navigate to that, you can also see in the sidebar, like if there's any layers or attachments to the PDF as well. Some pretty standard stuff there. So, you know, zooming, pretty standard. You know, zooming for most people is not a huge lift in terms of importance, but, you know, when you start talking about architectural and engineering and construction, the AEC kind of industry and applications around that, you know, we work heavily with like Autodesk and CMYC and Procore. The ability to zoom and kind of have that fidelity in that and keeping that there is really important. So we spend a lot of time there. other certain things that you want to see with our viewer is, we're not only PDF. So we're able to also look, if you look at the down here on the left, we're able to take Office documents and images as well and be able to use those all with one platform. So our goal really is to have one standard experience regardless of what document type you're looking at. We do convert those to PDFs, but I'll show some other stuff that we have for like native docx integration, stuff like that. So yeah, so viewer, a couple other things, we want to be able to search within the document and find instances of that and scroll with it, printing, things like that, but kind of what you expect. But, the value of the viewer is you're probably getting better performance. You're getting faster rendering times. We just had a huge release recently that basically puts us on par with everyone in the industry in terms of, if not even better, on like how fast it takes to render documents and things like that. But a couple other things is like the user interface can definitely be customizable. So you can see how we're moving the toolbar to the bottom. We can toggle full screen mode, but you can also see like we've changed the document to be more of a magazine viewer, so you can see the document in a way that you would expect to if you have a magazine. Also, with the improvement in web technology and things like that, we're seeing more and more customers launch web applications across mobile devices. So we allow you to kind of understand like what is this going to look like if you're on an iPad and things like that running the web app versus our native mobile SDKs. User interface is going to be super important to be able to customize some of these things. I mean, more simple, like just being able to customize the color of certain things is going to be important. So you can match maybe your branding and things like that, the background colors in terms of what you want to look like, for that. Changing the signature. So we have the signature box right here, but maybe we want to change it to a different that. So giving y'all the ability to really make this look like your application. We're implemented in some of the biggest use cases in the world. Like we power a part of DocuSign's workflow. You probably don't know that Nutrient's behind there, but that's our goal, to kind of be behind the scenes on some of this stuff. So that, again, with like toolbar customization, we see this quite often when you're looking at not needing all the functionality within a component. So our annotation component has a ton of functionality. Maybe we don't need all that. Or maybe you are selling a DRM and you're like, we really need to not allow people to, export the PDF, print the PDF and things like that. So we can disable those toolbar items. You can disable copy and pasting. We don't really want people to be adding shape. So we can really drive down what we want this to look like. So, we don't want media tools and things like that. So you can really build the workflow you want to within here. So those are the two that I really like to highlight real quick on that. Obviously, you can do more here as well. We have a lot of people who come in and say, I really want it to look like this, and we can work with our team to kind of have the UI reflect what you want. Last thing to kind of understand as we jump through some more of the complex functionality is obviously we support localization. So we want you to be able to work in the language that your customers are in or where you're located. So being able to use most Latin-based languages, and then obviously other languages that we see heavily from our customers as well. So when we're looking at this hovering over the icons, you can see that by localizing it, it's not going to do the PDF, but obviously it's now changing the UI so that it's in the language that we've decided to be. Cool. So that's our viewer. So that's a PDF viewer. That's where people start. That's basically the base of the SDK. From there, you're going to start adding more functionality. There's a couple open source viewers in the market. We are actually built off of open source engine called PDFume, which is Google's open source rendering engine that they acquired several years ago. We made a decision about a decade ago to actually fork off of PDFume. And so we have our own private branch where we built on top of it for all this advanced functionality, which has been super beneficial to us, because then we get both the benefit of, PDFume being used by, countless developers around the world. There's a lot of eyes on it. It's backed by Google. It's used in Chrome, which is the most popular browser. And then we also have our own private branch that we're able to build off of. We can actually commit back to PDFUme and kind of help them as well. But ultimately, like, we really equate it to, like, it's got a lot of eyes on it. So we feel really comfortable with what's been there and you know, the security and reliability that it provides. So all to come to say is, like, most open source tools don't have significant annotation support. So that's marking up the document. So you can actually see annotations is where kind of that sub features of what type of annotations we support really pops up. So 30 different annotation types. So when we pop back into here, we can kind of look at, like, what that annotation workflow looks like. So gets pretty exciting. So in terms of, like, drawing, you know, the expectation to be able to draw on the PDF, and then we have an inspector here where you can, you know, change the colors and things like that. You can change the opacity, the line thickness. You know, there's a lot here that you can kind of do and customize what we want this to look like. Ultimately, you know, we want freehand highlighting so we can highlight things. Also being able to select text and highlight. Where the difference of this becomes really important is, like, ultimately, like, anything you're seeing me do with the UI can also be done programmatically. So you're able to put any type of pre-command lines in that says, you know, select anytime it says the word pot, highlight it. And then, you know, ultimately, when you render the PDF, you can actually extract that too. So what you're getting while we're doing this is an annotation log with timing, what we're doing, and you can extract that and do that. You could even put an API in where you are requesting usernames and things like that, so you can actually track all this. So that's the benefit of, like, a lot of interacting with documents, is you can get down to, like, who and what, which is really powerful there. Other things, you know, we can put stamp annotations. You can also do custom stamps as well. We have a customer that basically is, like, works in the insurance industry, so they recreate traffic accidents and things like that using their own custom stamps. So this is super important in being able to allow customers, again, to take kind of what we think is going to be beneficial, but still allow them to have the flexibility to do that. So can upload an image on top of PDF, you know, common annotation. So welcome to PS PDF Kit. PS PDF Kit was our original name before we rebranded. So probably want to send a note to marketing to update document to Nutrient. So we have that. We can change the color of that, but we have common annotations. And so again, if you were going to download this and then open it in another PDF viewer, as long as they're adhering to the PDF spec, because we're using annotations as XFDF, you'd be able to still populate this. We have our own proprietary annotation format called instant JSON, which I think does wonders for in terms of performance and separating the annotation data from the PDF itself. Even that can be exported back to XFDF, which still stays within the spec and makes your PDFs, like, reliable across things. So you can do text annotations, but you can also do, like, a call out annotation as well. So maybe I should have done a call out here instead to say, like, let's update this to Nutrient. So cool. And then shape annotations. So you see one here with a circle, but we can add one inside of it. But we'll go ahead and delete it. But, you know, one thing to kind of, I usually like to point out is, like, the cloudy polygon. So as we've kind of worked through, you know, our customer base and things like that, there's always been, like, certain feature requests of, like, you know, this would be really helpful and really pertinent to the industry we work with. So for construction engineering, a cloud annotation, like, basically dictates a certain type of expectation of what that's done. So we had a bunch of feature requests come in that said it'd be really great if, other than shape annotation, you do cloud annotation. So we integrated that into the platform, and that's been really helpful for people able to do that. So yeah, so viewing annotation. So I think that's kind of some of the core functionality that most people expect. I think the next one that you would see on our list is form. So PDF acro forms. So PDF acro forms is a subset of PDF annotations. What that means is basically you're bounding an annotation to a certain part on a PDF under a certain format, and then you want to be able to either fill or extract that information in a lot of different ways so you can track this data. So you can see we've got our global electronics PDF, and essentially we've pre-filled these form fields from a database. Excuse me. one of the exciting things about Nutrient and the Web SDK is like you can basically, put command lines in like do this while you're writing a document, or do this on the back end. So if you wanted to use one of our server side tools to programmatically fill out forms and then view them, you could do that. So like you could really build an ecosystem of how you want that digital transformation, how you want that document to be handled in all different ways. So what we've done is we basically pre-filled this form with the information that we had available to us. So we've got a couple of different things. So maybe we need to fill out the zip code here. Okay, what else? Social Security's good. Actually, I have my master's degree as well, and I'm actually moving to management. So we have some of that there where you can come in and change things. Click the radio buttons, click the check boxes, and that's PDF form viewing and filling. But one of the things that we get a lot of requests on as well is like, okay, we have this form that was created years ago. We don't really want to have to go back and create an entirely new form. Can we just edit some of the forms? And so what we do is we have a PDF form creator. So what this helps is, mainly I need to change certain things like, okay, maybe I need to add some text here. I want to highlight that, but also like, I really need a date and time field. So we're going to add this here. We're going to formatting there, you can see there. And then here's where the cool stuff happens, where we can kind of change what it looks like. We can do the text style. We can also then look at the advanced and say, where's the creator name? Where's it going to map to? Is it required? Is it read only? And so you have that intrinsic, like detailed oriented, where you can really do a lot of with the information that you're doing on the PDF. But then from that, maybe we're gonna do this. So maybe, I don't really like check boxes. We're gonna delete these real quick. Instead, we want to bring in radio buttons. And so, we could change this, but I can briefly bring these buttons in and then replace them. And then again, following the PDF spec, you would be able to basically export this PDF and use it anywhere else as well. So yeah, so we'll get off form creator mode and then we can start filling stuff in, which is nice. And then fill out the date. We don't need that anymore. So that's our PDF form creator. So I think a lot of the use cases we see typically are more some here, but I think what people use this a lot for is they want to drag and drop signature fields. So things like DocuSign, when you're dragging like initial boxes and things like that, that's where we're seeing a lot of the form creator being used in terms of use cases. So yeah, so kind of popping back to here to keep us on track. So, we've done viewing, forms, annotations, and things like that. I'm going to jump a little ahead to signatures because that's typically one of the most popular use cases we see here at Nutrient, where people are coming in and saying, we're using a third party for signatures. Maybe the cost is becoming a little bit unachievable, or we want to bring signatures into our platform to keep everyone there so we have control over stuff. So that's where we see a lot of use cases come. So we support two different types of signatures. So one is called electronic signature, which is this toolbar item here. So you could draw your signature, you can add an image of it, you can type it, but ultimately you can just drop it on the PDF. You can drag and drop it, and that's the equivalent of an electronic signature. It's essentially an annotation, like it's a UI implementation to annotate the document. And then obviously you can still pull in any type of logging of when, who, how, and things like that. But ultimately it's annotation. Then you could flatten it on the PDF. If you have PDF forms supported, one of the form field types is called a signature form field. What that does would be automatically pull our signature UI, where you can drop it in and still do the things, and then it's going to resize the box so you can see it. So we can download it real quick. We can open it up in Chrome, and you can see that it's been signed. So super cool, where you can see moving from one PDF tool to another. You can see in Chrome that it looks good. Where you start going to the secondary level of forms is called digital signatures. So Nutrient can provide two different vehicles in how you can do a digital signature. So we can provide the SDK, which basically can help you verify, authenticate, and apply digital certificates if you're using a digital certificate from a third party. We also can provide the digital certificate directly as well. So if you want to use Nutrient as like your sole platform, like you can both use the SDK to do this. You can sign the documents. You can add the signature here, and then when we're finished signing, you can now see that we've added the digital certificate, because basically it's called an API that we have. It's come back, returned the document, and put a digital signature on it. There's some nuances to how it's done, but for the demo, we're going to simplify it here. So that's really cool here. In terms of digital certificate, Nutrient's going to have this banner and things like that. Where this becomes really interesting for me is, and really valuable, is like the whole point of a digital signature is to show that the document's been signed by who the person says they are, by some sort of validation. And it's also saying the document has not been touched since it's been signed. So I don't know if you caught it. I moved the signature. Nutrient is able to immediately say, hey, by the way, we've got to flag this. The digital certificate was invalidated and the document's been changed since then. So that's kind of the value of what you're going to see with our digital signatures. And so again, we power a lot of e-signature tools around the world. Most of them are using us in a combination of ways. Some are using our certificates, some using their own, some have their own, but we have a lot of different ways that you can support that workflow, which is really valuable. So cool. We are moving along. We're looking good on time. Just check the chat messages. We're good there. And we will continue. So viewing forms, form current annotations. We've done signatures as well. I like to scroll down here a little bit because some of these are a little bit harder to demo, but we will definitely show them to kind of understand what we can do. So that Office conversion, taking Office files, converting them to PDF, and then using these tools we've been showing. We can also send PDFs back to Office as well, so you have that workflow. Images as well, converting those to PDFs, and you can convert them back to images. PDF-A and PDF-UA becoming more and more of a compliancy thing on like what documents and their structure are. So like if you're going through digital transformation now, where like maybe you have boxes of paper and you want to be compliant to some of these regulations that are coming down from either, if you're in the US, federal or state level requirements, if you're in other parts of the world, whether, certain acts are coming in, typically with documents, there's certain things that they have to be compliant with, like accessibility or things like that. So we are constantly kind of iterating on our technology to help our customers be compliant there. So that's for that PDF-A conversion, but also just a couple other little things that, like CAD, PDF to PDF-UA, these things here, HTML to PDF, hyper compression, linearization, ways that you can really optimize the document to have the best workflow possible. I think when you also look at some of our other toolings like our .NET SDK, you can actually get into more things that you're able to do with the document from a server perspective of like, text and email to PDF, Office templating, barcode reading and writing, OCR, things like that. You can really see the functionality really open up on how you want to deal with documents. But ultimately, that's kind of some of the stuff that we're not going to show today, but still want to ultimately help everyone understand that we have those abilities to kind of move document types, optimize the document itself. Exactly. So, all right. So we're going to jump back and kind of do more of the end user tools, more on the redaction, the comparison, and the document editor and stuff like that. So back into the demo here. So we talked a little bit about redaction at one point early on. And so redaction is the ability to basically take a document and then remove the underlying information that you're going to redact from it so that it's irreversible. So we have two ways you can kind of do that. So you can do an area redaction where you're just going to pick an area on the PDF, you're going to apply the redaction, and it's permanently removed. So if I download this and I open it up in another viewer, it's gone, right? So I'm not able to do that. So the other way we can do text redaction. So I'm gonna select this text. Maybe I want to actually put some overlay of why I'm doing it. So I'm going to say that we were running a webinar. Red's fine. Let's see, we can repeat the text too. So if I do it again, do that, come back here, apply redaction. Oh, user error on my side. So let's try that again. Redact it. Go webinar. And repeat text. And then there we go, webinar. Why we redact it. And that's the way we were able to remove that information. So that is a way, like an end user, a lot of people use like Adobe for this, but if you didn't want to leave the application, you wanted to keep that audit trail of where that information is. You know, we have social security numbers on here. Maybe you don't want your end user downloading the PDF, opening it in another tool. Maybe you want them to stay in your interface and your in-house tool. This would be a way to kind of keep that paper trail of like where that document is going, where that information is going by just adding redaction support here. So we've got some other cool things in terms of like smart redaction, where we can actually take documents and go ahead and automatically run it through, and it's going to pre-select what you think it should redact. So, you know, maybe postal addresses are fine. So we're going to actually take some of this. I just want to do, you know, I was told I really need to get rid of credit card numbers and VAT numbers. Okay, so it's going to run the document. Okay. Yep, that's the VAT, that's a credit card. Let's check it out. Okay, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone. We're good to go. Can you give me a preview of what it's going to look like? And then apply redaction. So you could pre-select all this information, render the document, and then have somebody. So you're saving clicks, you're saving time, you're saving efficiency, and you're having people work smarter. So pretty cool with the auto text sensitive information that we've built on our site too. Other things is a lot of the stuff we've been doing to the PDF has been as an additional layer on top of it. We do also have the ability to edit the underlying text as well. So like think back to that form that we were doing, or maybe you're showing up at a conference and you're about to present, and the PDF that you're looking at is like, it's wrong. Maybe your title's changed. Maybe like actually, you know, maybe Norse doesn't work with us anymore. So maybe we want to add a different name. So we're able to actually change the underlying text and do that. So we're going to save that. And so we're able to change that as well, which is super helpful. It's great for dates, small things. We use them internally as well within our Salesforce integration for like contracts. So, you know, ultimately, maybe we missed the date at which it needed to be signed. So we have to move the subscription start date. So, you know, instead of going and generating a whole new document, you know, we pop it open in Salesforce, we click on the content editor, and we can go, you know what, we just really need to change this number to 751. So then we're going to save it, and it's done. Rather than downloading it, regenerating it, you can kind of make quick on the fly edits here, which makes it super helpful. Same thing with like when you're using like the document editor, like, maybe we just like, actually, I just don't need this page anymore. So let's delete that page, or, that's out of order now. I want to change it. I need to import another document that I've been working on. So, I was redacting. I had that contract we were working on earlier. So let's go ahead, and I actually need that to be the first page. So I'm going to save it real quick. And now I've got that back here. So just a lot of ways to interact with the document without leaving your application. Like, so it's clicks, it's times, it's security, it's a lot of different, it's speed. There's a lot of different values here, and ultimately, hopefully more functionality that you're offering your users, which provides more value, whether it's an internal application or you're selling some sort of SaaS product or on-premise product there as well. So cool. We are running through some stuff. There's a couple things that are a little bit more niche, but become super relevant in terms of like certain industries. So we have two versions of document comparison. So this is the first one, which you really think more of like construction, engineering. So like I would say vector-based PDFs where there's images or things like that, where like we want to see the difference between versioning. So like what we're doing, if you see on the top right, we've got a little UI help of like, select 3 points on the document. So we're going to find the 3 corners on this document real quick. You can see the tiles there. I love the UI that we do on our mobile SDK as well, that the engineers came up with, but on web, you're dealing with a mouse. So here we go. A little bit hard to find that third corner. So we're going to zoom out a bit. So we're going to come in here, select our notes, and then down here again. and then we're going to overlay it. So we overlaid the two documents, and we can kind of see some stuff stick out really quickly. This wall here, we've got two different spots where that wall is. So we probably need to figure out what's happened there. Up here, we also have the walls in two different places. So you're able to overlay these two documents really, really well. I just don't like this color, so we're going to switch to green and things like that. So it really helps you to be able to do that and see the different versioning and stuff like that. So I would say like our construction engineering customers really like this. So in terms of comparison, then we also have text comparison. So like two documents side by side and what's the difference there. So, we're looking at two versions of documents where it's predetermined this. So like, I don't know, we use this internally too. Like we'll have a customer send us a version of like an order form. We'll throw it in our comparison tool to see if there's been any changes between one version and another. And then legal gives us a thumbs up and we've got a new customer, which is great. So we use it ourselves internally. So you can see all the differences there. You can also see text comparison. He's here, AI text comparison as well. Well, it's not letting me do it today. That's the fun part of live demos. Oh, there we go. Cool. Just took a second to load. So it's also able to give me an AI summary of what these changes were done. So as we see kind of the world change and how AI is being more incorporated and stuff, we've got a lot of different ways you can do this as well. So like we have our own AI assistant that'll show towards the end of this. But how can we incorporate some of this stuff? It gives you an AI summary there, and this can either be hooked into your own LLM so that you're able to keep that information secure as well. So we're providing you the tool set there. So cool. Back to our feature list. So we've kind of gone through most of this stuff that I think is super helpful. Measurement tools I can flash real quick just in case we've got anyone from a construction and engineering industry. So being able to measure distances, we're going to set the scale. Of course, we want snapping on. So set scale. Let's use, this will be fine. We'll do done. But then we want to hit measure. So let's measure the distance between this and this. So we're able to do measurements there in terms of like setting the scale and the distance between that. You can see the snapping kind of happening there. So super helpful in terms of people that are on the field or in the office of doing that. So that's the core stuff. I mean, that is some of the stuff we've been offering for years, but it continues to be valuable for our customers and things like that. There's a few niche things I would love to kind of flash real quick that I think is super helpful for people to understand that we're doing. Most of the stuff that I'm showing is we're taking a document and converting it to PDF and then doing it there. As we've worked more and more, we've gotten more and more requests of working in other native file types. So, images, keeping them in the image format, not converting them to PDF to, have the fidelity and stuff. But one of the things we've been working on quite a bit is it's our document authoring SDK. So document authoring SDK is similar to what you're going to expect with like being able to work with DocX or Microsoft Word. And so basically, this is basically the same kind of understanding of like, okay, you're in your application, you're opening up a Microsoft Word or a DocX file, and you want to stay in that application. You want to have that full life cycle. Maybe you want people to collaborate, but this now gives you the ability to also edit files like this. Maybe the way we use it internally with our Salesforce integration is, we are generating a document and then using this right after to help with the templating. Because sometimes when you generate a template, it's not perfect, but instead of having to go download it somewhere else, upload it, you can start doing it within your workflow there in your product. So we're seeing a lot of great adoption of this tool, especially when you start thinking of like, how can you incorporate like an AI assistant with this to help with writing stuff. This is really exciting stuff, but this is our document authoring SDK that we really like to show off. Cool. So I'm going to switch over to Web and Document Engine to show kind of one of the last things that I want to show, which is some of our AI offerings here. So we have an AI assistant that can do a lot of cool things. We continue to iterate on what's possible. So as you can see, we can do a couple different things. So the first iteration with this is like, explain the document to me. So just document understanding and things like that. We just want it to be able to, what you would typically do, download a PDF, stick it in a ChatGPT, Gemini, something like that, and be like, hey, explain the document to me. And so bring that within your ecosystem, again, not having to go somewhere else, maybe paying a credit somewhere else. But it gives you kind of the key document overview. But then, like we can do other things in terms of annotate the document, highlight. Let's see what we're doing today. So highlight every time you see the word web. Live demo. So we're hoping we're going to be able to do this today. So we're going to run this real quick. It found instance, and there we go. We got web. We got web highlighted. We have web highlighted. We have web. So beautiful. Love it. Maybe we want to extract it from that. So this is helping people interact with documents in a much quicker way, but also do that. So let's redact the word toolbar. Let's see. But this is something we're really excited about and things like that in terms of like redaction is permanent, irreversible. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. AI says, and yes, please go forward with that. Oh, we'll go yes. Good. All right, we have the tool doing it. It's selected it for redaction. Next step to permanently, all I need to put there, we like to apply them down. Yep, get it done. They really want to make sure we want to do it. So they're applying the redaction, and we've removed the information, which is really, really helpful. Even like moving from the previous demo of like we're doing smart redaction where it's pre-selecting stuff, and then I'm hitting click, like we're still just making it easier and easier to work with document more efficiently and stuff like that. But almost the other stuff you can do, you can fill out forms, analyze stuff, search and extract, and there's more functionality coming to this as well. So really excited to continue to show this and power with some of the cutting edge technology that's coming out. We're really happy with what we're seeing from our engineering team and our product team and getting this in the hands of our customers. You might even be using it right now with a third-party platform that you're not sure of. So great. So we're wrapping up a little bit, and this has been really, really helpful. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and kind of go back to my deck, and so I can give you some information on like if you want to take next steps with us or something like that. So first off, thank you for joining these. I love doing these. I love having conversations. I love showing off our technology and kind of showing what the Nutrient journey's been. There's a lot of ways to keep up with kind of this stuff. So, we do have a blog where we're releasing stuff about how other customers are using us, telling how you can, our engineers doing a lot of blogs around best practices for engineering and things like that. I use the demo here. So at any point, if you want to come in and play around with it without downloading everything yourself, you can do that. We do a free trial. So what you're able to do is go in and download our latest version. We do watermark the PDF. Basically, that watermark can come off if you need a temporary key or things like that, but super easy to navigate the website to download the latest version, get up a POC and running and test all this functionality. When you move to production or buy a subscription with us, we just limit it to the features that you want to pay for and things like that. So that makes it a little bit easier. So you're not paying for anything that you're not going to use. And then ultimately, like if you want to have a conversation with the team, whether it's getting in touch with sales initially, asking that you want to talk to our engineering team, that's fine as well. I also love talking as well. So, I mean, if you ever want to have a chat with me directly, I always put my email in the chat. So you can email me directly. It's richard@nutrient.io. I'm happy to pick up here if you have any questions or something like that. But really appreciate the time. This has been great. If there's anything that we didn't show that you'd like to see in the next one, please let us know. We continuously do these so everyone has an up-to-date idea of what we're doing, what we're working on, or can just give you some ideas of what else you could be adding to your platform. So we'll say goodbye for now because we don't have any other questions, but I certainly appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.